Maurice Switzer said it's best to remain silent at the risk of being thought a fool than to talk and remove all doubt of it. Benjamin Franklin said, remember to not only say the right thing in the right place, but far more difficult still, to leave unsaid the right thing at the tempting moment. Yours truly, Avi Klein, ponders that while we traverse across this landscape, starving to be heard and noticed, what may happen when the objective is met with an opportunity? Will that objective be squandered or perhaps not materialize at all due to an underwhelming showcase of our ambition? With all the words being uttered today, it's oftentimes best to let our 2 ears bully the one mouth that we have and just listen. Our next guest here on Wrestling with Anything But has always made sure that the quality of his message is far superior to the quantity. When he spoke, and when he moved, it had a purpose. Those of us fortunate to tune in noticed. Did we ever? I'd like to welcome former ECW, WWE professional wrestler, C.W. Answers. How are you, man?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. A few interesting things took place in January of 1971. Let's start backwards. January 31st, Apollo 14 lifts off on the third successful lunar landing mission. January 25th, Charles Manson and his 3 family members are found guilty for their 1969 murders. January 17th of 1971, the Colts defeat the Cowboys to win Super Bowl V. I'm sure Jarrell remembers that one. January 12th, All in the Family is broadcast for the very first time. Which brings us to January 7, 1971. A day in which a great birth takes place. Of course, I'm talking about Hollywood actor Jeremy Renner. He was born that day. But in addition to that, C.W. Anson came to this world as well.
I did. And Nicolas Cage as well.
Oh, did he? I didn't even know about Nicolas Cage. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I think the funny question would be to ask you, what do you think of, what are your memories of January 7 and 71? No, but we'll move on. Growing up in North Carolina, since this is Wrestling with Anything But, I want to delve into some non-wrestling questions first before we sink our teeth into some pro wrestling related matters. You were an amazing baseball player. You were actually drafted by the Padres right out of high school, which is amazing. How old were you when you got into baseball?
5 years old. I still remember my very first baseball match. My baseball game. I don't know why I call it match, but my very first baseball game. I remember glimpses of it, as I could say, and I think my family being athletic. My mom and dad both played. My dad played baseball. My mom played softball. My mom's brothers, my dad's brothers were all baseball players, and it was just kind of a natural fit to me. I played basketball, which I was okay. I played football, and I was a really good quarterback because I could throw it so far. At 11 years old, I could throw a football 60 yards.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's the one thing I've always had is an arm. I can't run through crap. I'm not very fast. I'm your average catcher. I
was going to ask you if you had like an affinity for other sports. It sounds like you did, but did you, I guess, put an emphasis on baseball growing up?
I did when it kind of hit when I was like my 9th grade year coming in. I pitched a couple of years too, but it kind of felt as a catcher my 9th grade year when an umpire, he told my coach, he said, it's a pleasure to get behind the plate and call a game with Chris catching. He'd like to be a 9th grader, be a freshman in high school.
Oh, wow.
He is an amazing catcher. And then my baseball coach, the varsity coach, he wouldn't let me play any other sport. He said, I'm grooming you. He said, we got a catcher now. He said, when he leaves in 2 years, he said, you're going to be my catcher. So like the first year I made varsity, he put me in right field.
Incredible.
And
wow.
there was one amazing play that all the people talked about, the newspapers wrote up about that, I threw a guy, like well, the play was, there was 2 outs. It was one of these game-winning plays, game-saving plays, and it was hit to the fence, and I ran back, caught it at the fence, and took one step and threw a line shot through the guy at home, tagging from third base. So I could, I could stand at home plate and throw it over the left field fence, literally on a line. It was like Johnny Bench-esque. So that's when I started grooming towards baseball, and it just kind of became my love. And then around my junior year, I fell in love with Benito Santiago and saw him throwing out base runners from his knees, and I was like, I said, my arm's strong enough to do that. And then I started dropping down and throwing out guys from
get out of here. It sounds like you were natural. I mean, from what it sounds like.
Yeah. It was. There was one game I was throwing it back when my pitchers wasn't doing what I was calling, or they were throwing just crazy shit. I would rifle it back to them as hard as I could. And one of my pitchers called me out one game. He said, look, He said, you got to cut this shit out. Or he said, we're going to switch, and I'm going to catch because you're throwing it harder back to me than I am to you.
That's incredible.
So,
wow. When your coach is telling you something like that, I think you realize at that point that you got something going on here.
Yeah,
I did, and my friends did too. My friends said, there's no reason you shouldn't be playing in Major League. And I've always been very, very humble. Never had. I'm like, yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe. And they're like, just like Chris, you're picking guys off second base from your knees. You're picking guys off third base. And he said, nobody else is doing this. And this is way before the Latin explosion, the catchers come through. You know, I mean, growing up, I love watching Tony Pena catch, and then Benito came my idol, and his backup, Sandy Alomar Jr. And it was a crazy how when I come out, we were at an All-Star game and the San Diego Padres were scouting our pitcher.
Wow.
And they saw me because I threw out 3 runners from my knees, and they had the gun on him, on the pitcher, but they were also, then they started clocking me, and they clocked me at 90 miles an hour from my knees to second base.
That's really incredible. I mean, did it seem, I'm not going to use the word intimidated because at that point you were playing baseball for such a long time and you were a prospect, but did it put an extra amount of pressure on you knowing that they were scouting you at the time?
I didn't know till after the game.
Oh, I see.
When in high school, I had Carolina, UNC, Duke, ECU, which is another local in North Carolina, and there was I think Florida State had came up, and they were watching it. It was a championship game, and they were watching it, and they were watching me. There was a few of them that were watching me. And then when the pros come calling, it seemed like everything was spiraling all at once when it come down to it.
And I mean, I guess, yeah, I mean, were you in favor of, I mean, I shouldn't even ask this question to the San Diego Padres for crying out loud, but what negated you from actually playing with the Padres?
My parents. And I was an 18-year-old impressionable kid, had never run anywhere, done anything. I was very sheltered to some extent. And my mom's always been very influential in a lot of my stuff. And her and dad sat me down and talked to me. They're like, cause this is way before guys were making millions of dollars. And San Diego offered me $22,000 to sign with a $2,000 signing bonus. And my mom was like, that ain't nothing. You need to go to college. The pros always be there. Hindsight being 2020, I should have went to the pros because college has always been. I didn't know.
Of course.
So I took that, I turned that down. Like, hey, I'll go, get my education. Then I'll still be young enough I can play. I mean, I didn't know. I really didn't know. You're talking to a guy that my family didn't even have cable until I was like 25 years old. We had 3 channels.
Wow.
Right.
We lived deep. You've heard the saying in that place in the middle of nowhere. Well, we live right on the other side of it.
Yeah.
So,
it must have been a bigger deal even. How about the town? I mean, because of the fact that, I'm going to piggyback on what you said, because of the fact that it was a small town, were there a lot of people kind of pulling for you? Like, this, San Diego Padres scouts are in town and you're living in this little area. Like, it seemed like, were you sort of like a hometown hero at that point, or were there a lot of prospects?
Yeah, that was the thing. Everybody in the area was, because everybody knew me. Everybody knew my family. And then when they found out that they were looking at me to go there, everybody was hoping that I would do it. A guy that I played, All-Star ball with the year before went to the Padres, and that was another deterrent because he went as a pitcher, and he said he damn near starved to death. He was living in some kind of trailer in rookie ball out in Arizona, and he's like, I almost didn't make it. And that was another deterrent. When my parents heard that, they're like, and my mom's always, hell, I'm almost 50 years old, and she's still, be careful, don't, when you going to stop this wrestling? When are you going to stop this stuff? That's how moms are. I'm like, Mom, I haven't stopped yet. I'm not going to stop until it's time, so.
But when did you get to that point, though? Like the point where you stopped, listening to what your parents were telling you, and then things that they were saying versus things that you were seeing. Like, when did it click that, maybe I need to stop letting you guys influence? Yeah.
Once I started wrestling and started getting on the road and started traveling, because we never went anywhere when I was growing up. So once I got out and one of the first times I ever drove to Charlotte, which is about 3 hours away from Raleigh, outside of Raleigh where I live, it's a straight freaking shot. And I got lost because I had never, I'm looking at the map and stuff. I didn't know how to read a map. And I got lost because I'd never been anywhere. So once I started getting out and seeing, potentials and people telling me that I had that it when it comes to wrestling and, the Masked Superstar Demolition Axe, Mr. Bill Eadie, he told me one day, this is early in my career, he said, kid, you have amazing timing. Because they asked me how long I've been wrestling, and I was thinking like it was like 3 years, 4 years, not even 4 years I've been wrestling. He said for somebody that hadn't been wrestling and never been trained, he said you have amazing time in the ring.
Now, just to sort of conclude, I guess, the chapter on baseball, there are two things I want to ask you. One, did you feel as if by watching baseball later on, or maybe even today, did you feel or still feel that you could have been a Major League Baseball player that could have contributed well on a team? And the other question is it harder, or was there a time or a period of time right afterwards where it was harder for you to watch baseball because of what happened?
It was. I look at it and see, and I knew I could have been a Major League player, no doubt. I hit for good average for a catcher. My arm was as strong, if not stronger than them. Right. You can't hide. As most catchers, and I'm very intelligent behind the plate. And then sitting there trying to watch it now and a little bit later, I'm like, man, that could have been me. It's that all these could have beens. I'm very blessed with the wrestling career and everything, how it turned out.
Sure.
But there's always been these parts on me, especially later when I started playing softball, and I just kind of kicked myself in the ass for not doing it, because I know by now I'd have been retired, I'd have been coaching some team somewhere. There's just the knowledge I had for baseball. But I also put to the side that if I did that, I would have never became C.W. Anderson and had the career, or be talking to you guys. You know, it was that.
Absolutely. Sure. I know Jarrell wouldn't be able to get over that. No, but in all honesty, I find your story fascinating because it's almost a tale of what if, and it's so easy to just tell a person, well, you don't want to, boggle your mind and start wondering. But at the same time, I get what you're saying. I will give you a lot of credit because you were able to transition from a young age from one sport to another. Before we get into pro wrestling, since it's called Wrestling with Anything But on this podcast, from a young age, were you a quiet kid, or did you create a lot of riffraff, or how were you like as a kid?
Kind of like I am now, quiet to myself, very intimidated, very shy. I was talking in front of people, talking on a camera, things like that, just being in front of a bunch of people. I was nervous. Get me out on the baseball field, I was in my element. But you get me somewhere out of my element, I'm very nervous. That's why I don't like going to crowded Walmarts. I don't like going to crowded restaurants.
Right.
I'm out of my element, and I don't like doing it. The first very live promo I ever did, live, was at the ECW arena. Paul Heyman threw me to the wolves, basically. I cut a promo live. And I feel like I was going to piss in my singlet, because I'm sitting there shaking in my boots. I am so nervous. But I've never.
It's almost like trial by error, I guess, right?
Oh yeah. That's how Paul was with me. He would give me things to do, and he would look at me. If you do this, you're going to go far in this company. If not, A perfect example is, I know we're kind of jumping ahead, with the first night I wrestled Rob Van Dam. The first night I wrestled Rob Van Dam in Chicago for his title, for the TV title.
Yep.
He literally looked at me with Tommy Dreamer standing there and said, you got Rob Van Dam tonight. I went, what? I only been there like 6 months. He said, He said, here's the deal. He said, you have a good match? He said, I see good things for you in ECW, but if not, at least you tried.
Yeah,
okay. Just to say you had a good match.
I come right after the match, none whatsoever. I'm nervous as hell, going to the match, and once I, again, start going through it, everything started clicking. I come in the back. He was the first person to greet me. He hugged me. He said, that's what I'm fucking talking about.
That is awesome.
That's right there.
Really awesome. Jarrell and I always discuss this following topic to nauseum, but one of the greatest aspects about growing up when you did was the rush children had on Saturday morning when cartoons came on. What were you doing? You had favorite cartoons? Were you a cartoon guy growing up, like the rest of us?
And to today, Looney Tunes.
Yes.
Huge Looney Tunes mark.
Kids today don't even know. I remember reaching a certain point in time in my age where I'm not that much, we're around the same age group, you and I, and I remember reaching a certain part in my life where I remember kids were waking up to Saturday morning reality shows. Mm-hmm. They didn't even realize what they were missing. I'm like, kids, you don't even know. You don't even know what you had.
No. Sitting a bowl of cereal, watching Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny and Sylvester and them go at it, and that kangaroo whoop Sylvester's ass. I mean, it was all good.
Yeah.
Sure. Today, my 8th grade students are watching stuff I didn't know about till I was probably about 23. But, sticking in the medium, but getting away from cartoons, the music, TV, movies, anything you remember growing up that really had a profound effect on you?
Music, it had to be when the Beastie Boys came out. Cause I was a huge, and still am. I wouldn't say I'm a huge rap fan now. If it ain't Eminem, I really ain't trying to hear it. But I was such a rap rap fan back then, from LL to Run DMC to Grandmaster Flash,
nice.
Fat Boys, guys like that. That when Beastie Boys come out, I was like, oh, white boys can do it too. I remember going in a town listening to that License to Ill tape.
Oh my God!
The tape and listening to it over and over, and flipping it over, going to the next side. And this one, my car didn't even have rewind, so you had to
man, so you just had to let it play.
The Beastie Boys movies had to be around my graduation year with Major League. When Major League come out, used to watch that to get hyped up for a baseball game.
You know what's funny? I don't write notes. A lot of this is just off the cuff. But the one note that I wrote down for this interview was regarding film. What about Major League? And you just brought it up. I mean, I figured
one of my top.
Yeah.
Major League, Field of Dreams, and of course Bull Durham.
Bull Durham is underrated. It's underrated. Nobody talks about Bull Durham. It's an underrated.
So, one of the guys I wrestled with here started in Omega, Chuck Coates. He's actually in that movie Bull Durham. He's one of the batters where the bull gets plunked in the early.
Shit! Wow.
Yeah, it's Chuck Coates. Yep.
Nice. One of the most underrated baseball movies I saw was The Babe in like the early '90s. John Goodman, I thought, like hit it. Like you would think that a guy who's such a star like him. I watched the movie and after 5 minutes I forgot I was watching John Goodman. Like he just fit that role perfectly. Right?
Yeah, with the face and the swing. Yeah, he was such a good character. And there's another reason I love Bull Durham too, because I live 45 minutes from the Durham Bulls athletic park. So that was another one that kind of hit home. And they filmed a lot of stuff around 20 minutes from my house at one of the baseball stadiums. The scene where they came and they got out of the car and they needed a rain out, and Kevin Costner said, "Let the bonus baby pay for the taxi," and they beat the thing and they drenched it with the sprinkler. That was filmed in Wilson, which is about 20 minutes from my house.
That's so neat. That is so neat. Did you actually? So you went on set and checked it out, or?
Oh, I've been to that stadium before, that baseball stadium before. Yeah, so it's actually kind of cool when you go there and like, man, Kevin Costner was here.
Yeah, of course. How about the Southgate Mall in Elizabeth City? You ever go down there as a team just to hang out?
I didn't really go to Elizabeth City until I wrestled, and once I started wrestling, then I started going there. Most time mine was Morehead City and the Outer Banks, Nags Head, places like that.
Yeah, great. I mean, the reason I bring up some of these towns is, let me tell you something. You just told a positive story about what happened when you were approached by Paul Heyman and how he threw you into the wolves. You passed the test, 2 thumbs up, as Ebert and Siskel used to do, or Siskel and Ebert. No, not me. I actually did indie wrestling for about 2 years, and I probably got 2 thumbs down, and that's why I quit. And by the way, I think I saved some promoters some extra cash because they shouldn't have spent it on me. I was awful. Getting that out there. But as far as you can remember, when did you start watching professional wrestling?
I remember the exact match.
Oh wow!
I hated professional wrestling growing up. My little brother Kevin, I hated it. I like watching Saturday Night Live, and around my area and outside of Raleigh, the NWA used to come on about that time. He would be on one little TV with rabbit ears watching NWA, and I'd be in our bedroom in our little TV watching Saturday Night Live. And he was trying to get me to watch wrestling. I said, I'm not going to do it. So he said, Chris, just once, watch one match with me. So it was Saturday morning. The match was Ricky Morton, and it's crazy that I'm actually wrestling Ricky Morton tonight. But it was Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson against the Russians, Crusher Khrushchev and Uncle Ivan Koloff, where they dropped the belts to rock and roll when rock and roll first came in. I remember when Ricky Morton did the roll up on Uncle Ivan, 1, 2, 3. I remember my brother. He and I jumping up and down like the Americans had just defeated the Russians in a war.
Wow.
I was hooked from that matchup. Yep.
I always tell my 8th grade students, I try to relate wrestling to United States history just to get their attention. And it's so funny how like you had a Brezhnev, you had a Khrushchev who was based on Nikita Khrushchev, who was the premier of the Soviet Union at the time. It was so interesting how, especially in the hotbed of wrestling, out in the South, or it just seemed like those particular characters, not only did they always work as heels, but you have to give credit to some of the guys like Ivan, who he lived the gimmick all the time.
Oh, he did. He absolutely. I loved Uncle Ivan. I used to go to his school down in Charlotte, and when I was learning and training every here and there, he became really close because he was always around the shows around there. And I remember last year, I'm telling this story, and I'm in the locker room with Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson, and Crusher Khrushchev, Barry Darsow. I'm in the locker room with 3 of the 4 guys. Of course, Uncle Ivan has passed away from that, but 3 of the 4 guys that got me into wrestling. And I want to say that match is on YouTube, and it's something in 1984.
Wow. So that definitely meant something to you, right? Like you're sitting with 3 of the 4 guys that you actually watched. I mean,
Absolutely.
that were part of your first match. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was hooked from there on out.
That's incredible.
Did your brother ever try to pursue wrestling with you, or?
No, my brother, he was more of a he's more of a basketball person. He would go to shows with me every now and then, and we'd throw him in there and let him ref and stuff like that. And one time I hit him in the back of the chair, and he's like, "Screw this." He never came back.
Is he pissed off that no matter what Michael Jordan tries to do with the Charlotte Hornets, it's just not working?
It doesn't. It does. As much as I love Mike, man.
The Hornets, man, and you know what? They were on the precipice of doing something interesting this year. And once again, they go on their late season slide like they've been doing the last couple of years. I mean, it's as you were saying, as much as you love Jordan as the player, like, as an owner, what the hell is going on?
It's most great players can't be owners or managers. Most great, your average ones. Like Steve Kerr was an average player.
Absolutely.
He wasn't great. He was consistent, but he's a great basketball coach.
But I mean, I have a theory behind that. I feel like because they had the best seat in the house, they got to watch the game and observe it. No, I mean,
how do you not get good?
If you were a star player, you expect everyone to be on the level that you are.
Yeah. And there's no bigger mark for Michael Jordan than me, because I used to wear it when I played basketball. I wore number 23. I had the sleeve on my knee halfway down turned over. I had the arm brace.
Yeah.
No, I never got the Carolina shorts, but I do have the Carolina jersey.
The team that they had, people don't get this. They had, at one point when you had James Worthy, Mike Doherty, obviously Michael Jordan, Sam Perkins, later Kenny Smith came aboard. Brad Doherty was on board. What a team they had from like 81 till about 86, 87. This was a juggernaut. They were an absolute juggernaut.
Yeah, with Dean Smith coaching.
And Dean Smith, how could I forget the great Dean Smith? Getting back into some of the pro wrestling stuff, I could talk basketball all day, but who are some of the favorites? I mean, you mentioned a couple, but who were some of your favorites that you watched growing up? And were there any that you just couldn't stand at all? Not for any reasons as an adult, but as a kid marking out. Were there any guys that you just wanted to see lose every week?
Well, as far as the one losing every week, Arn Anderson, him and Tully.
Okay.
Until I got to know what a worker was.
Yeah.
And then, but as far as when I started getting into wrestling, my idol, and even a little bit before, Bobby Eaton was my idol, and he continues today to still be my idol. And I used to, I patterned my career after him because I wanted to be the guy to go out there and work a broomstick or a 5-star match and or Ric Flair and have a 5-star match. And that was Bobby. Bobby didn't hurt you. He looked good. He was safe, and that was the guy I wanted to emulate.
I did an indie show years ago when I did some indie wrestling, and the late Chris Pally, King Kong Bundy, was there, and he did something great for me that maybe I'll bring up later. But Eaton was on the card as well, and from all accounts, just everyone seemed to he had so much respect for everybody, whether it was the Water Boy or the guy main eventing. He was just such a nice guy, so down to earth,
Very nice.
Was there a buzz going around your area when the first 2 Starcades came into town?
From what I remember watching it on the old satellite TV when they came around. Because I went to Dorton Arena a few times beforehand, but as far as, of course, I never got to go to Starcade. But I don't really remember because I didn't watch the news or read newspapers and stuff like that. It wasn't the social media stuff like it was now. So I don't quite remember, to be honest with you.
Right. I'm sure your brother does.
Yeah, he remembers it all.
If there were 3 guys you could have worked against from Jim Crockett Promotions, who would they have been?
Arn. Of course, I did get to work Dusty, so I cancel him also. It's Magnum. And let me think. Give me one. Probably Flair.
Sure.
I never got. Probably those 3.
Do you feel like guys like Kernodle, Ron Bass, Johnny Weaver, Dick Slater, they don't get their just due today?
Oh no. The Johnny Weavers and stuff like that, they don't get it. They don't get, because they don't go back. People don't go back that far to watch wrestling like that.
Absolutely.
They don't research their history and why guys are here today is because of guys like that.
And to segue into that, do you find yourself telling some of the younger guys, I'll get into your school soon because there was an accomplishment I was telling Jarrell about this that you achieved at a very young age of 25, which is your own school, which is amazing at that age to do. But we'll get into that later. Do you find yourself telling some of the kids to, hey, go back and start watching some of this old stuff?
You have to, yeah. You got to know where you come from. Plus, old school still works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's never, I can, like tonight when it's myself and Shane Douglas with Manny Fernandez and Ricky Morton. I can tell you it ain't going to be none of that stuff from today. It's going to be old school, and the people are going to be going crazy. People are still chanting Ricky Morton's name, even kids, and nobody was alive, and they're still chanting his name.
That's incredible.
So obviously it still works.
Absolutely. I wish some of the same respect and history could have been approached for my students in my class. They obviously don't care. But is there a Mount Rushmore of matches that you'd like place in that respect? Again, not just off the top of your head. It's not like one of those things you have to go crazy about. But
one of them is Midnight Express against what was Armstrong and the cat. What were they? God knows what was their name. Not Brad Armstrong, but Tracy Smothers and.
Yeah.
God, what was, Tracy Smothers, it wasn't Brad Armstrong, it was Steve or Scott. It was one of the Armstrongs.
Steve Armstrong, okay, yeah. I think it might have been Scott.
What was their, they come out with a rebel flag.
Was it Brad?
I don't think it was Brad.
No. I think when they were the young guns or something like that. I remember, I don't know what you're talking about. When it was Smothers and Steve Armstrong, that's it, yeah.
Yeah, Steve. Yeah, when they were that match, it was from a brawl, WCW brawl or something like American Bash.
Sure.
Arn and Ole versus the Rock and Roll in a Cage from Starrcade.
Right.
Let's see. And the I Quit with Magnum and Tully.
Yeah, great choices. What can you tell fans listening about a certain guy named El Chico?
Oh, dear God, you had to bring him up, didn't you?
I had to.
Some people, when they do their research, they bring that guy up. All right, one of the promotions one of the first ones I worked for, literally the night I became C.W. Anderson at the end of the night, they wanted to throw me in a match to get my feet wet. So they put me under a hood, and this was when Razor Ramon was popular, and they wanted me to do the toothpick thing and try to talk like Razor Ramon did, and they called me El Chico. It was one match. I maybe done him twice, maybe. But that damn character haunts my career because just that one match.
Well, geez, if I would have known, I definitely would have brought it up.
Yeah. I look back at it and I'm like, Jesus Christ, talk like Razor Ramon, act like him. Those two picks. The people that run it were marks, and obviously I'm a mark because I don't know any better.
But how did you get the name? How did you choose the name C.W. Anderson? Because I find it fascinating that you said you hated professional wrestling. Your brother loved it, and you're the one that excelled in it. Which for your brother had to have been the coolest thing. Like if I was your brother, I would have chosen your ring attire. I would have picked your name.
What do you mean? You should vicariously live through him, right?
Yeah,
I know. that night, After my match, there was two guys in there, Pat Connors and Rocky Mills. They ran as the Andersons. They had gotten the name from Gene Anderson to use the Anderson name, and Rocky was getting ready to retire because he was older. He was about what I am now, and he said, Pat sat me down and said, "Look, I'm looking for a partner to become an Anderson." I had a goatee at the time. I looked more like Big Boss Man than I did an Anderson. He said, "I'm looking for a partner to become an Anderson." He said, "Do you mind growing your beard out, choosing a name and being an Anderson, and let's run as a tag team?" I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" Because I didn't know what I was going to call myself.
Right.
So he said, "Well, choose a 3-letter name. I'm Pat. There's Arn. There's Ole." He said, "Try to come up with a 3-letter name." So for the next week, I grew my beard out. I already had the bald head, so I come up with Ike and Cal. I couldn't really come up with anything. These names is what I come up with. So one night I'm sitting there talking to my baseball coach who was managing around the Indies that time, and he's known me forever. And I said, "Mr. Randy," I told him the whole thing. He said, "I can't come up with a name." He said, "Just use your initials and call you CW."
There you go.
Stuck.
Just
there you go. That's interesting. When meeting Ole Anderson, was he a bit standoffish perhaps at the fact that you were, I don't know, either using the Anderson name or maybe the fact that you just weren't an old and grizzled vet like he liked him to be? You loved
he was an ass. He was a complete ass. Right. Yeah, he was an ass to everybody on the show, and he was in a bigger ass to me. And his whole thing for being brought in, High Spots brought him in, the whole thing was him to give me permission. Arn already gave me permission. Of course, I got it through Gene before he passed away. And I'm like some people that go out and just call herself an Anderson, and because there's a few of those out there as well. I actually got permission. and I've had permission. Arn gave it to me, and then, Ole was that whole thing. And I'd already been through ECW. I was actually flew home from Japan that day and went to that show, and he was just a complete ass to me. And I went and you can see it on video when I say, Arn, Ole, I've traveled a long way to meet you. You hear him say, I don't give a shit.
How did you, let me ask you a question regarding that. Of course, you seem like a guy who has thick skin anyway. Or, at the very least, someone who doesn't, let anyone just stand in your way of reaching your objectives. But was it kind of a bit of a letdown because they say don't meet your heroes? Not that he was, and you weren't a wrestling fan growing up until later. But, did that kind of just sort of, I don't know, did that have sort of a bad taste in your mouth? Did you leave a bad taste in your mouth when that happened?
It did. It did, because Arn's always been cool with me, and Arn's always treated me well. Arn actually worked out with me for about 2 hours one day at WWE.
Right.
Teaching me how to be a better Anderson. And,
wow.
And Ole was just a complete ass. All he wanted to do was sell that stupid book of his. And it was one of those, and when he said, I don't give a shit, in my mind, I said, you know what, I'm done. So I finished the promo and then cut a promo on him later for High Spots. Cause I even looked down and told someone take the name that you couldn't take here, and I did halfway. Sure. And then I rose my hand up and said, I'm going to take it to here. Because he was just such an ass to me. So,
right.
But yeah, it was one of those, it was a complete letdown. If he'd have been anybody else, I wouldn't have cared. But him being an Anderson, he was good.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I can relate. I can understand.
There was never a reason for it. It's that's just who he was.
No, I
get that from everybody.
Yeah.
I get that from everybody. He has that reputation.
At age 25, when some people are finishing their post-grad studies, others are contemplating whether or not their roommate can have dibs on a stripper named Sally, there you are at age 25, opening up your first wrestling school. Talk about that. That's amazing.
It was a huge mistake on my part. Hey, how are you doing? It was cause I kind of got thrown into it because I shouldn't have been teaching in school at 25 years old and never really formally been trained. So I opened it up, started training people because around that area, everybody said, you're really good. You should be teaching people what you know, blah, blah, blah. So again, I let them talk me into it, but a good thing come out of it. I started learning how to teach people. I started learning how to speak to people and talk to the level that they're at. And it ended up, Lodi became one of my very first students. Ended up training Chili Willie. You guys know was with me at ECW.
Sure.
And I trained a lot of top guys around the Mid-Atlantic that really, some have done jobs at WWE, but nobody's ever made a big career out of it, but there's still tops around the Mid-Atlantic. But, I trained in a flower nursery barn. It was a warehouse. And the ceiling was so low you couldn't even pick somebody up for a body slam hardly. There was no heat, there was no air. So in the winter it was cold as hell. In the summer it was like you were in a hot box.
I still give you a lot of credit. You got to remember, age 25. I was still contemplating what I want to do with my life, or be a male stripper. Who knows? Age 25 is when people don't even know what the hell they got there. You at least had a goal. I like the fact that, if anything, it probably made you an even better trainer later in life because you had it under your belt.
It did, because I knew the stuff I had showed guys wrong, and how to, like I said, the way to teach people, and I learned a format of how to train them from the beginning to the end. I learned a lot from that. When guys were ready, when guys were not ready, and then it got to a point where once I went through the power plant, I would run through my own little power plant tryout. See if guys see who wanted it. I had three news channels come and do stories on my tryouts because they were so hard and people had talked about them so much.
And by the way, we're going to definitely have you on later to talk about it. Some other time to talk about some other stuff going with the ECW stuff. People need to understand we're doing this right now live with CW Anderson. Appalachian Championship Wrestling. He's got a show tonight as we speak. He's at the arena.
Here right now. Doors getting ready to open.
Doors getting ready to open. And tomorrow, if you want to catch CW, he's got a match against Jack Swagger. Fusion Wrestling, which is live at I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Rappahannock High School. Do you want to plug it really quick?
Very good. Yeah, that's you said it better than I could. It's in Warsaw, Virginia, which is the eastern part of Virginia. But first time I ever stepped in a ring with Jack Swagger. Fusion Wrestling is really good. It's got another Extreme Horseman member, Preston Quinn's going to be on the show. Some really good indie talent from around the area. Tonight's show's here in Oak Hill, West Virginia. Like I said, myself and Shane Douglas and Chase Owens are tagging against Ricky Morton, Manny Fernandez, and one other guy who I'm not quite sure. Chris Hamrick's going to be here.
Wow, sounds like a loaded show.
Yeah,
Hey, guys, look
tonight's
at
a pretty
this. You
low
can't
show.
beat this, guys. General admission's $10. Bell time starts at 7 p.m. Meet and greet starts at 5. FusionWrestlingOnline.com. Check it out. Do you have time for a little game that we call either or I don't even know your status right now. Do you have this split? Okay. We'll bring you back on. We'll talk more about ECW, the power play, and all that other stuff. We play a game here with a lot of the people we bring on called either or. And really quickly for our listeners, our announcement regarding Right Guard is coming up next week. Stay tuned for that. Thank you for Right Guard. We definitely covered a lot of ground. Let's start with either or. If some of these either ors are outdated to our younger listeners, tough shit, Google it. Either or, Jay Leno or David Letterman?
David Letterman.
I have a feeling what this is going to be. Bugs Bunny or Roger Rabbit?
Bugs.
Al Bundy
If
or
you
Norm?
said if you just said Jessica Rabbit, we'd have had to back up a little bit.
You know what? Yeah, I think I should roll with Jessica. Al Bundy or Norm from Cheers?
Norm, huge Cheers fan.
Me too.
Okay.
Gatorade or Powerade?
Gatorade, no sugar.
Like it. I'm going to ask this question even though I know the answer. Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
LeBron Blames. Let's go Jordan.
In the looks department, Halle Berry. I don't want to get you in trouble. I know you're a married man. In the looks department, Halle Berry or Angelina Jolie?
Oh, 100% Halle Berry.
Choice.
Okay.
Godzilla or King Kong?
Who was the first one?
Godzilla or King Kong?
Godzilla.
You were going to say something about Halle Berry, but I cut you off. Maybe I saved you.
Oh, she's my gimme.
We all got one.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to my wife. You hear that? C.W. Anderson has a gimme. Give me one also.
Well, my wife's is Tim McGraw, so.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Bowling or darts? Both two of the newest sports that could be entered in the Olympics next year, by the way.
Ooh. Well, I ripped my hamstring in Japan bowling, so let's go with darts.
Go with darts. Barry Bonds or Wade Boggs?
Barry.
Cujo the dog or Beethoven the dog?
Beethoven.
Guns N' Roses or Metallica?
Metallica.
Listening to 8.5 hours of Ole Anderson doing stand-up comedy or watching 48 hours of David Flair matches in succession?
I would go 40 hours of that while having a circle jerk with my dad and granddad.
Okay. I know, either or, huh? Talk about that. Classic guitar or electric guitar?
Classic.
Yeah. Ken Shamrock or Dan Severn?
Dan.
Mike Tyson or Muhammad Ali?
Tyson.
Chuck Norris or Jackie Chan?
Ooh, Chuck.
Tough one, yeah. Rambo or Rocky?
Rocky.
Jerry Seinfeld or Chris Rock?
Chris Rock.
McDonald's or Burger King?
Burger King.
Yeah, I think the Whopper probably is what clinches it, right? I mean,
That's what the French. It's their French fries and double cheeseburgers.
yeah.
Oh wow.
Rap or rock?
Rap.
Paul Heyman or Jim Cornette?
Paul.
Garfield or Heathcliff?
Garfield.
Yeah, Heathcliff gets no love these days. Schwarzenegger or Stallone?
Stallone.
Pens or pencils?
Pencils. You can always get rid of your mistakes.
You're old school. I like that. Krusty the Clown or It the Clown?
Krusty.
No one picks it either. Yeah, I think it is 0 for 7, Joe. Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Wars.
Roller coasters or Ferris wheels?
Ferris wheels, if I got to choose.
Nice. Our first Ferris wheels. Give the man a prize. We got our first Ferris wheel. Leg day or bicep day?
Bicep.
Horror or comedy?
Comedy.
Stephen King or Steven Spielberg?
Spielberg.
Rocky or Raging Bull?
Rocky.
Chinese food or Mexican food?
Mexican.
Frosted Flakes or Cheerios?
Frosted Flakes.
The late great Mini-Me from Austin Powers or Webster?
Webster.
Swimming pools or beaches?
Beach.
Chips Ahoy cookies or Oreo cookies?
Oreos.
Orange juice or grape juice?
Orange.
Pepsi or Cola?
Pepsi.
Road trips or flying?
Flying.
Plums or apples?
Apples.
Why are plums so underrated? I ask this every year. When is the last time you saw someone walking around eating a plum, CW? When? Have you seen that?
Exactly. No,
you
never.
Let me know. I mean, I've never seen anyone do that. But what movies can you watch over and over and over without being bored? Is it safe to say Major League, maybe?
Major League, absolutely.
Okay, favorite animal?
Dogs.
Couple more. We're out of here. Planes or trains?
Planes.
If you could be an animal, what would it be?
A hawk.
Arn Anderson and Wahoo McDaniel.
Arn.
Buddy Landale or Jay Youngblood?
Jay.
Ricky Steamboat or Sergeant Slaughter?
Ricky.
Greg Valentine or Jimmy Valiant?
Boogie.
Ric Flair or Roddy Piper?
Flair.
Morton or Dennis Condrey?
Oh my God. Condrey.
Jim Cornette or Paul Jones?
Cornette.
Big Bubba Rogers or Lex Luger?
Bubba.
Robert Gibson or Stan Lane?
Stan.
Sam Houston or Mike Graham?
Mike Graham.
Tully Blanchard or Arn Anderson?
Arn.
Hillary Clinton or Missy Hyatt?
Missy Hyatt.
Good choice. Most likely to say stop, I'm hungry during a road trip? Hey, I gotta eat.
Steve Corino.
Most likely to say, hey, do my biceps look small? That's probably half the locker room. Hey, do my biceps look small?
Tommy Dreamer.
Most likely to say, to read a book quietly in the locker room?
Francine.
Most likely to crack jokes in the middle of the ring?
New Jack.
Most likely to run to catering and devour what's on the menu?
Big Sal.
Most likely to bitch about everything?
Yeah. Mikey Whipwreck. But in a funny way.
In a funny way. Most likely to pretend to listen to you while checking a woman out?
Oh, that's definitely Tommy Dreamer.
Okay. Most likely to be someone you call a friend in the industry to this day?
Corino. He's been my best friend for 25 years.
Love it. Nice. Most likely to eat a lot before a match. You ever see that? Someone eating before a match?
Balls.
And last one, most likely, the colleague that's most likely to eat, breathe, and drink pro wrestling 24/7.
That would be a tie between Corino and Dreamer.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
In closing, I'd like to say that in this humble guy's opinion, it is the detailed precision that is oftentimes the lonely, wandering, aimlessly road sometimes. But it is with precision and only with precision that our best efforts are maximized. Before this interview, some of you listeners may have known C.W. Anderson as a talent that moved and spoke with effortless precision. After this conversation, I hope that everyone can realize that the man behind C.W. has been just as precise as the talent we've watched for years in the ring. Thanks for joining us today, C.W., and if there's anything else you want to plug, please feel free right now.
Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Everything's ECW Anderson. You can find me there, message me. I always get back to you. Appreciate everybody listening. For those of you that love me or hated me in wrestling, without you, there is no me.
Love it. We'll have you back on. And again, good luck tonight, man. Have a great match.
Thanks, guys, so much. I enjoyed it.
Likewise.
Success.